Okay, welcome to day 2 of the Board of Pharmacy. While we wait for for your honor, we're going to start off with the Org Development Committee, but we'll do roll call first. I'll start to the right. Albert, you want to start?
Albert Wong, professional member.
Alan Shad, licensee member.
Valerie Munoz, public member.
Lavonta Butler, professional member.
Greg Lippy, public member.
Amy Gutierrez, licensee member.
Victor Law, licensee member.
I guess I'm going to go with the flow. Stan Weiser, licensee member.
Debbie Veal, licensee professional member.
Oh, there you go.
We're not professional.
All right, we'll start out with the Org Development Committee report. In your packets, you'll see the budget update and report. We had a new fiscal year that just started in July 2017. The board's authorized expenditures for the year are about 23.37 million. As the board was advised during the February 2018 board meeting, the state had a transition to a new state accounting and budgeting system known as Fiscal. The department went live on July 10th, 2017. There have been some delays, and I think, Jenny, most of these are just what payments? I know we just had one with an ABP.
Things aren't getting paid, things aren't getting processed, and apparently it's a custom, it's an off-the-shelf product, and it's being used to do a lot of really proprietary task-specific things it was never intended to do, and they're having problems with it. So we just got our month 7 report. Normally we would have had that a couple months ago, and it's the 3rd fiscal monthly report we've had all year, so you can see how bad behind they are. We don't have reports for month 3 through 6 at all. So they're trying to catch up, and they're starting to work the bugs out of the system, but it's going very slowly. If you're a vendor with the state or with the Board of Pharmacy, you're not going to get paid probably timely, which there are consequences to that, but they're trying to fix it. So
Okay.
just a smooth rollout for a computer system, another state smooth rollout.
In month 7, the revenue sources, about 89% of the board's revenue has been from licensing, with about 8% from citation. And the board has also expended $12,241,000, which is approximately 52% of its authorized budget, with 71% of the expenditures in personnel, and then 12% in pro rata. The fund condition report for fiscal year is projected, the fund condition for months in reserve. We are currently in 18-19 fiscal year, which gives us 2.2, and we're in 19-20 we're going to 0.7. As the board begins to receive more budget details, the staff will assess the fund condition to determine what, if any, action is necessary to address what appears to be a reduction of the board's funding, at least the months in reserve. Attachment 1 includes detailed budget charts for board revenue and expenditures, as well as the fund condition. I'm sure, Greg, you probably reviewed those if there's anything that you see, right?
Absolutely.
Given your expertise.
Every single one.
Any board member comments? Public comments? Okay, moving on to item B, board. Oh, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to say I'm here. Ricardo
Oh,
Sanchez,
Ricardo.
yes,
public
you want to
member.
announce
Thank
yourself,
you.
Ricardo?
Yes. Yeah, Ricardo Sanchez, public member.
Good morning.
Excuse me.
Item B, board member reimbursement and attendance information is on attachment 2. Board members may seek reimbursement for travel expenses and per diems. They're paid for each day of the board meeting, but they can also submit hours for work. It can submit hours for work performed during additional board business. It's important to note that the figures that are on the report only represent hours and travel expenses where reimbursement was sought. So there could be board member actions or work that wasn't, where reimbursement was not obtained. Because it's not uncommon for board members to waive their per diem payments or only request partial reimbursement. The reimbursements are in attachment 2. And a report of the board member attendance is provided at each board meeting. Attachment 2 also includes board member attendance information for fiscal year 17-18. Board member comments? Public comments? Item C, future board meeting dates. The 2018 board meeting dates are listed. June 6th of this year, we have a petitioner board meeting. July 24th to 25th, and October 23rd to 24th are the next full board meetings. We have additional petitioner board meetings on September 6th and December 12th of this year. And then we have some proposed 2019 board meeting dates that are listed. And I know I've been working with, and Victor, I've been working with Laura and Ginny to make sure that we don't schedule these around any major conferences that are in the pharmacy arena. I think one of these we moved because of NACDS
Right.
as well. And then there's also some proposed 2019 board petitioner board meeting dates. Any board member comments? Public comment? Okay, if not, is that our hearing officer?
That, I would say, would be our report.
All right, that is the org development report. We will then move into the scheduled
That's right.
petition for reinstatement of licensure. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and let Your Honor set up. Great, thank you.
While we're doing that, I can get this stupid screen.
The record now in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation of University Compounding Pharmacy and Joseph Gracella. I hope I said that right. It's Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2018-041083, agency case number 4347. I am Administrative Law Judge Teresa Brell. I work for the Office of Administrative Hearings. I do not work for the Board of Pharmacy. I'm here today to preside over the hearing, and what will happen today is the Deputy Attorney General will present evidence, documentation, and then we're going to let the petitioner talk to the board about the petition. What will happen is the Deputy Attorney General, she'll be allowed to ask questions of the petitioner after he gives his testimony. And I understand you have an attorney as well, sir, and then your attorney can ask you questions as well.
Sorry, Your Honor, they can't hear you on the mic.
Oh, they can't, can you hear me now? I usually have this problem at the board meetings for some reason. My face doesn't go in the mic the right way. But after the attorneys ask questions, then board members will be allowed to ask questions. And the focus today is on rehabilitation because the petitioner is asking to have probation removed. All right, why don't we have appearances for the parties? First for the Deputy Attorney General's office, or the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, Desiree Kellogg, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 2760.1 and Government Code Section 11522.
All right, and for the petitioner?
Good morning, Your Honor. Ivan Petrzelka on behalf of University Compounding Pharmacy and Joseph Gracella.
And then Mr. Gracella, you're here too, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Ms. Kellogg, were you ready to present the documents?
I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibits 1 and 2 the original petitions for early termination of probation for University Compounding Pharmacy and Joseph Gracella, and as Exhibit 3, the original petition for reduction of penalty for Joseph Gracella, and the packet with accompanying documents. I understand that the petition for reduction of penalty has been withdrawn, but the documents in that petition now form a part of the petitions for early termination of probation.
Okay,
The petitions have been redacted to withhold the home address and phone number of Mr. Gracella. I'd also like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 4 a certified copy of this decision and order adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order entered in case number 4347. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of these exhibits. I'd also like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 5 the agreement to electronic recording of hearing. May I approach, Your Honor?
yes. Okay. All right, now I'm going to mark these documents for identification. I'm marking and I'm marking with the same numbers that Ms. Kellogg has suggested. Exhibit 1 is the petition for early termination of probation for the University Compounding Pharmacy. Exhibit 2 is the petition for early termination of probation of Mr. Grisella. Exhibit 3 is the petition for reduction of penalty. With the accompanying exhibits. Oops. Exhibit 4 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order. And Exhibit 5 is the agreement to electronic recording of hearing. Now, Mr., I don't know if I can say your name,
Petrželka.
Okay, sir, do you have any objection to Exhibits 1 through 5 being received?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibits 1 through 5 are received. Ms. Kellogg, did you want to make any other comments before Mr. Grisella speaks?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay.
Effective April 1st, 2016, petitioners' pharmacy license and pharmacist license were placed on probation for 4 years for, among other violations, arbitrarily assigning expiration or beyond use dates to sterile injectable drug products, making false advertisement claims about the effects of testosterone pellets on their website, and compounding sterile injectable drug products in an unauthorized environment in violation of law. Petitioners have now filed petitions for early termination of probation, seeking to terminate their probation approximately 2 years early. According to their probation monitor, UCP and Mr. Grisella have complied with the terms of probation. I'm now prepared to proceed with questions for petitioners after petitioners make an opening statement.
Okay. All right, Mr. Petrželka, did you want Mr. Grisella to speak? Or you want me to
I would
swear
like to
him in?
make a I would like to make a brief opening statement
okay, go ahead.
before I turn
Go
the
ahead.
forum to Mr. Grisella.
Okay.
Your Honor and honorable members of the board, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present this petition on behalf of University Compounding Pharmacy and Mr. Grisella. We acknowledge the fact that the board's primary mandate is public protection, and in light of that, we also understand that these petitions are granted sparingly under very strict scrutiny. And we also understand that petition hearings are not a forum to relitigate the underlying discipline or the merits of that discipline. However, this particular case, we believe, presents somewhat unique circumstances that warrant at least a brief discussion of the underlying discipline. As Ms. Kellogg stated, excuse me, in April of 2016, Mr. Grisella's license, both his personal license and his pharmacy licenses, have been placed on probation for, among others, violations of the law related to compounding environment in which sterile compounded products could be prepared. As it turns out, that statute has been subsequently repealed with the board's full support, and it has been replaced by regulations that are consistent with the provisions of United States Pharmacopoeia's Chapter 797, which establishes the nationwide standard for sterile compounding. The provisions of Business and Professions Code 4127.7, which was the section of the law that Mr. Grisella had inadvertently violated, were inconsistent with the standards set forth in United States Pharmacopoeia, Section 797. In fact, Mr. Grisella's conduct and his compounding would be permissible under today's regulations, and he compounded these products in full compliance with Section 797 of United States Pharmacopoeia. Nevertheless, we acknowledge that he inadvertently violated the statute that was inconsistent with USP. We understand that the change in law in and of itself would not be sufficient to grant this petition. and we are not asking you to grant this petition on these grounds. The principal reason for this petition is not only Mr. Gracella's full compliance with the terms of the probation, but mainly his extraordinary and continuous mitigation and remediation efforts that meets or exceeds all the regulatory standards. Mr. Gracella is known in the industry as innovator, and you probably know, most of you probably know him personally from meetings that he regularly attends. His innovative practices are well known in the industry, and he is known to go above and beyond mere compliance, and that is what the testimony and the documentary evidence that we intend to present today will show. Mr. Gracella's pharmacy is PCAB accredited, and patient safety is of the utmost importance to Mr. Gracella and his entire team. So with that, I would like to turn the forum over to Mr. Gracella and allow him to speak on his behalf.
Okay, Mr. Gracella, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of California?
I do.
Okay, counsel, you can ask him questions or have him speak.
Okay. Mr. Gracella, approximately how long have you been a compounding pharmacist?
Well, actually, we opened a university compounding pharmacy 25 years ago, so this is our 25th year, and I've really enjoyed all the years as they've gone by.
In those 25 years, have you or your pharmacy ever had any problems related to quality of the products that you compounded?
There was never an instance of problems with quality. We've never had a recall that was caused by us. All the medications that we made with as these pellets did not have any problems with the quality. There was no problems with sterility and no problems with the actual processing of the prescription. It's merely the room that it was made in.
When you were first subjected to the discipline by the board, what was your first reaction to that?
Disappointment. I think that I take pride. I've been coming to these meetings for over 20 years, primarily compounding. And I put a lot of input into the laws. And honestly, I was shocked to see I did not follow 4127.7. And I think it's probably because it was a statute and it really was not in the compounding laws that we look at every day, how we've been changing them. It was in a separate section, and to be honest with you, I didn't notice it. I don't think anybody noticed it. And you know, that's the disappointment, because my job is to look at the laws and making sure that this pharmacy runs good quality, but most importantly, that we follow the laws. And for this one to get by me, I'm kind of amazed.
After you've discovered these errors, what did you do in order to correct these violations or to mitigate the effect of that? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, as far as we reviewed everything and constantly kept increasing quality control. I think we go way out of our way. Actually, we not only follow the California laws, we've been following USP 797 since 2008, and that's when we were board certified. And you have to follow USP 797 if you want to be board certified. Not only that, but we went way out of our way to start moving into the level of GMP, which is a higher level than just USP and California Board.
Oh, you mentioned GMP, which stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. Are pharmacies required to adhere to standards of good manufacturing practices?
No, they are not. We feel that we should go up and above in this type of practice because it is such a serious type business that you really have to really pay attention. You have to be very knowledgeable in the compounding arena and to be able to make the medications at its highest level. The highest level is GMP, and that is what we are striving for, and we're getting very, very close to GMP.
Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit more about the specific rehabilitative measures that you've undertaken with your team since the time the probation has become effective? And for the members of the board, I'd like to direct your attention to page 3 of the addendum to the petition in your pocket. If you do not have that handy, I do have additional copies. Your Honor, would you allow me to distribute them?
Is it part of Exhibit 3?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's page 3 of 7 of the addendum to the petition. Section 19, to be specific. No, they don't.
Okay, hopefully everybody could find that page. We did tremendous amount of changes in the last 2 years, and I'd really like you to focus on that page and to see how much we have done. Now, we just do not do the basics to cover the laws. Like I said, we go up above and beyond. We started, this is just the last 2 years, started in January 2016, and we had all clean room personnel go to an annual online critical point sterile compounding training. This is done, it's exceptionally good training, and we have everybody run through it. External, we also did a gap analysis. Now, the gap analysis was done by 2 different companies, John Quick and Associates, and we did a USP gap analysis, and as I was saying, we are moving to GMP. So we did 2 gap analysis. At that point, they gave us the information, and then we made the corrections. We have monthly audits by an ACHC inspector, and we audit for California law, also USP 797 compliance. In June of 2016, the Director of Compounding was sent to Critical Point for sterile compounding boot camp. And we also started purchasing in-house viable air sampling system. Now, this is not required by the California Board, but it is a GMP concept. The Director of Compounding was sent to Parental Association, which is actual GMP training. And in December 2016, we hired Eric Costango and Jim Wagner, to take a look at our clean room, redesign it, and to make sure that we are running perfectly. On January of 2017, UCP actually became compliant with all of the hazardous laws that were placed by the California Board of Pharmacy. We actually had this done on January 2017, even though it's not really needed to probably January 2019. We went sterile preparation. We also did, which was required in January, we did stability studies on all of our drugs. Now, this is a big, big undertaking, and it was required by January 2017. And that alone costed over $750,000. And it was good that I did invest all the money because we did see problems with stabilities in certain things. And so we were happy that we did that. We did it then again, we rehired John Quick to come back and do a gap analysis to see if we corrected everything. And he again came by and then offered to look for other problems in the gap analysis. Let's see, Director of Compounding, Rick is a certified QP 503A pharmacist. We're really proud of that. That's at a critical point. He is one of the first pharmacists that was approved to be a QP 503A pharmacist. In 2017, we were approved by PCAB. We had another renewal. All clean personnel in 2017, all clean room personnel start using full aseptic garb. This is not required by the Board of Pharmacy. This is when you're head to toe completely covered in sterile garb. And again, this is not required, but that's a GMP, so we are moving towards GMP. In 2017, we sent all clean room personnel to hands-on critical point training. And in September 2017, we did something really unusual, is we hired a full-time quality control manager. Now none of the pharmacies use quality control. This is a concept of GMP. And what this person does is make sure that your policy and procedures are perfect and they're actually doing according to the policy and procedures. She also provides a complete check system to make sure that these drugs never go out unless they are approved. She's almost like a police officer within the company to make sure everybody does their jobs, make sure the training's done, make sure that when a sterile product is made, that the batches are tested, and we need her approval in order for that medication to go out. So this is something that, again, is a GMP, and we are striving for a highest possible level. Sterile Compounding, Director of Sterile Compounding attended a summit at ACA. Last October, we had a 2-week FDA inspection. This was interesting because they came with 3 people and were there for 2 weeks. Very sharp pharmacist at the lead. And I can't tell you how comfortable we were with the FDA there. Now, most people would be in a state of panic, but because of everything we did here, I was very comfortable. I didn't see any real problems coming, and I wasn't sure if we were going to get a 483 at all. After 2 weeks, 8-hour days, they were there for 5 minutes for the closing, and they found one simple observation. And basically, it was the spin bar. If you remember what the spin bar, it's a bar that spins inside the beaker to mix the solution. We didn't depyrogenate it. But we corrected that and sent that information back. But I was very proud of all the people and everything they did, and all the work we did. The employees did an excellent job, and it's all due to this training. Let's see. Director of Compounding went to a 2-week training program, and the quality manager will be attending a quality manager training. So we spend a tremendous amount of money to make sure that we have good quality products. I highly doubt if you see very many pharmacies on this level. And I have to say that the goal is to get to GMP, and that is the direction we are going.
Thank you.
One other thing. None of this was done because of the probation. This is just what we do all the time. And years prior to that, there was just as much behind it. So like I said, this is not just because of the probation. This is because this is what we do on an everyday basis.
Thank you. Is university compounding pharmacy accredited by any independent accreditation agency?
Yes, we were one of the first pharmacies to be accredited by PCAB, which now moved to ACHC, and they do USP 797 compliance. We were one of the first boards or first pharmacies to be accredited, and we've been accredited for many years now.
Is your pharmacy currently licensed in any other state than California?
Yes, we're licensed in about 35 different states.
Did the fact that you were disciplined by California State Board of Pharmacy have any effect on the licensures in the other states? And if so, could you describe the effect?
Actually, it was very devastating. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but once you get placed on probation, it goes to the National Boards of Pharmacy. At that point, New York stopped the license, which, again, we lost a tremendous amount of business out of there. We're probably on probation at least 11 states. I've been to many boards of pharmacies. And as I went to the boards of pharmacies, I would explain why we were on probation in the repeal 4127.7. And I was really met with some very good positive information. There was no violation of USP 797, which all states follow. And many of them did not bring up charges at all. The ones that did were only because they have no other choice, because if you're on probation in California, you're automatically placed on probation. I had even the state of Texas that allowed us, waited 6 months because we had the possibility of coming off probation. They were very nice about it, but everywhere I went, I thought they were very good. And the only ones that I feel that placed us on probation is the ones that had no other choice.
Lastly, could you tell the board a little bit about your community service activities that you engage in both personally and through your pharmacy?
Well, I'd like to go back to the. I just wanted to let you know, because we discussed this yesterday about different licenses. What ended up happening is we lost at least 40% of our business. I would say 25 people had to be laid off, lost their jobs. It was very sad to see people. I know I had this one pharmacist who was she wanted to end her career with us, and she's 63. We had to lay her off. A lot of people lost their jobs because of this, and we actually had to close the pharmacy and recondensed, and it did a lot of damage. What was the other question?
The community service.
Oh, community service, as far as, well, one of the things that we do is provide free compounded products for veterans with traumatic brain injury. If you learn about traumatic brain injury, these explosions, the damage that happens to them, they come back with traumatic brain injury. It damages the pituitary, and what we do is replace their hormones. Testosterone is a main one there. And what we do is, for people that can't afford it, what we do is give it to them free. It's been going on now for 3 years, and we've set close to $100,000 of prescription medication for people, for the veterans. The other thing that we do is we support children's cancer. It's a camp that everybody, it's sad that all these kids go to camp, and we provide the money for it. We've been doing that for quite a few years. And let's see. And other things, we've helped out a lot of poor type clinics, giving donations to clinics. And that's some of the things that we do. There actually is much more.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Kellogg, go ahead.
Thank you. To clarify for the record, the documents and answers to your petition for reduction of penalty are now incorporated into your petitions for early termination of probation, correct?
That is correct.
Did you sign the two petitions for early termination of probation and the petition for reduction of penalty under penalty of perjury under the laws of California, certifying that the statements in the petition were true and correct?
Yes.
Did you state in your petition for reduction of penalty on page 2 that, quote, I would also like to bring forth the fact that the quality of preparations compounded by UCP was never in question?
The quality? I would say that the quality, there was no problems with sterility and the quality that I was aware of.
So turn to page 2 of your petition for reduction of penalty, question 17. And the second paragraph, well, the third paragraph under question 17, where it says, I would also like to bring forth the fact that the quality of preparations kind of compounded by UCP was never in question. Did you write that?
I'm trying to find where you are because
It's on page 2.
Yeah.
Question 17, it's the third paragraph in the middle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I apparently did.
Did you state in your petition on page 2 that I feel compelled to mention the fact that the law I inadvertently violated is Business and Professions Code Section 4127.7?
Yes, is it? The law that we violated, yeah. 4127.7.
Would you agree that the practice of pharmacy requires strict compliance with state and federal laws and regulations?
Yes.
And isn't it true that you and your pharmacies paid $750,000 to the federal government to resolve allegations that your pharmacies mishandled significant amounts of highly addictive and frequently abused prescription narcotics?
Okay, hold on. Do you have an objection? What is it?
Relevance, Your Honor.
What's the relevance?
The relevance is under Business and Professions Code, Section 4309. I'm entitled to asking questions about the activities of the pharmacy while its license was in good standing.
While it was on probation?
While it was in good standing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, objection's overruled.
No, University Compounding Pharmacy never paid $750,000.
But isn't
and
it-
it was not in, University Compounding Pharmacy did not have that charge against them at all.
But isn't it true that you as an owner paid $750,000 as a fine to the DEA as a result of a related pharmacy?
Is a
Objection, Your Honor. This line of questioning does not pertain to activities that occurred at this pharmacy at all, albeit Mr. Gracella may be the owner of that entity that was involved in it. It occurred at a different time frame, and it's not related
What's your
to the
objection,
petition.
though? Because you're
Relevance.
answering the question, and I want
Relevance.
you to tell me your objection instead of you're sort of giving an answer, and I want to hear an answer from the witness. So what's the objection? Relevance?
Relevance, yes.
Overruled. You can answer, sir.
What was the question again?
The question is, isn't it true that you and a related pharmacy paid $750,000 to the federal government to resolve allegations that one of your pharmacies mishandled significant amounts of highly addictive and frequently abused prescription narcotics?
We had an employee who stole prescription medications. We caught the person. We turned the person in to the police, the DEA, and there was approximately 2,200 prescription, 2,200 tablets. And yes, the DEA, well, it's a lot of money, and the reason why is they charge you $1,000 per tablet. So if you had 2,000 tablets missing, they wanted me to pay over $2 million. I did negotiate it down to $750,000, but it was one employee. We caught him. We had him on camera, and I was very disappointed because of the fact that you did your job to protecting and you controlled the drugs. We also had perpetual inventories. The guy got away with it. We caught him, and that was my gift.
Isn't it true that one of the allegations in that matter was that Medical Center Pharmacy allegedly delivered drugs to a residence that pill seekers used in conjunction with their sham identities?
I would not know.
And isn't it true that the unaccounted for pills were the powerful and highly addictive drugs oxycodone and hydrocodone?
Yes, that is what the pharmacy technician stole.
And isn't it true that the alleged violations included diversion of a significant amount of controlled substances, failure to control the pharmacy's inventory of controlled substances, and the failure to maintain required records of the pharmacy's distribution of controlled substances?
Well, when someone steals and you catch them as fast as we did, you got to expect some tablets to be missing, and you got to expect some records to be off because he stole the tablets. And we did catch him, turned him in, and believe it or not, nothing happened to that person.
And isn't it true that the third cause for discipline in the first amended accusation alleges that UCP falsely advertised the effects of the use of testosterone pellet therapy?
There was no false advertisement at all. I have done over 1,000 hours in continuing education, and that was just the symptoms of andropause. Just as you have symptoms of menopause, those were the symptoms of andropause. And if you take a look under WebMD, you will see this information.
And isn't it true, though, that you advertised that the testosterone pellet therapy was convenient and effective and provided continuous relief from the symptoms of andropause?
Well, that is just the basic therapy of pellets, just like injectable drugs. Pellets are being used, and they get the injection, and they come back in another 190 days or 100 days. So it is being released through it, and this is common knowledge with manufactured drugs.
So you deny that charge in the First Amendment accusation?
Deny what?
Deny that you advertised and falsely represented the testosterone pellet therapy?
I don't think I falsely advertised it. No.
And isn't it true that the first cause for discipline in the First Amendment accusation alleges that UCP assigned beyond use dates without possessing a written justification for the chosen expiration dates or substantiated studies showing a longer date was supported?
That, I would say yes. Now, that's a very interesting one also. Back in 2008, no one was doing stability tests, but I was. And we tested out our drug, the pellets, at 1 year dating. And the binder was used, and later we found that the binder we wanted to change was to cholesterol. So the binder, basically, if you know what a tablet is, it keeps it together. So what ended up happening, just like a capsule would keep the drug together, my professional knowledge tells me that that is not going to have an effect on the stability. So granted, I got caught on that part, but I ended up, my professional knowledge says it's going to be good for just, for 1 year. So I went out, had it tested again, and I sent that into the Board of Pharmacy, and now I had 700 days. The reality, that is a hyper-technicality. I think that's one of the, and here's another really interesting point. It really wasn't even relevant because when we make pellets, you're not legally, you can't make these pellets for a long time period. You make them this month, you only anticipate what you need, and you dispense them next month. And within the law, we have 6 months that you, even if you didn't bother, you didn't test at all, you still had 6 months. Granted, I put 1 year on there, but all the pellets were used in the following month. So usually by 90 days, they were all completely used. So there's multiple things there. I think the inspector went a little bit way too far. That could have been a simple correction, but I don't, to me, there's definitely no reason for probation for something like that, and neither for the advertisement.
But isn't it true that you labeled testosterone pellets compounded in a cholesterol base with an expiration date of 365 days without possessing either a written justification for that chosen expiration date or substantiated studies of finished drugs or compounded drug products using the same components, and packaging showing a longer date was supported, which was required by California Code of Regulations, Sections 1735.2H and 1751.7A4 at that time?
I did have a study with stearic acid, and we moved to cholesterol. So the reality is the binder was not the same. But the results were the same. It had the long expiration date. And if you followed USP, which back then we did not and we are now, all I had to do is provide information from ongoing studies, and that would more than gladly prove that.
But isn't it true that testosterone pellets compounded in a cholesterol base, you didn't have the appropriate studies that was required by law?
At the time, no, but I did turn it in later.
And do you agree that an improper assignment of a beyond use date impacts the quality of drugs?
I would say yes if you are looking at no, if you're looking at the main active ingredient, and if it's just the equivalent of the capsule that's keeping it together, I do not think that's going to have any effect on the expiration of a date, and the binder of the tablet is the equivalent to the capsule, so I say I don't think so.
So do you think an expired drug product has the same quality as a drug in expiry?
Objection calls for speculation and irrelevant.
Overruled.
What was the question again?
The question is, so do you believe that an expired drug has the same quality as a drug in expiry?
An expired drug has the same quality.
As a drug that's not expired?
Of course not.
Okay. And isn't it true that the fourth cause for discipline in the first amended accusation alleges that the FDA conducted inspections of UCP and issued a Form 483 in 2015, making such observations as UCP failed to thoroughly conduct out-of-specification investigations with respect to sterility failure found in 3 different batches of drug products. UCP's aseptic processing areas are deficient regarding the system for monitoring environmental conditions, and UCP's procedures designed to prevent microbiological contamination of drug products purporting to be sterile do not include adequate validation of the sterilization process.
That was the FDA's. First of all, when the FDA comes in, you are going to get written up. You will get a 483. Now, on that, they are different than Board of Pharmacy inspections. They are inspecting for GMP. I don't know of any pharmacy that 503A that is following GMP. I think that is because of these inspections, that's why we went up to a higher level. But all this was falling within the California laws.
But isn't it true that the FDA made those observations?
Yes, they make observations. I guarantee you, I don't care what pharmacy you are in, if you have 7 observations, which I think we had, and they are very nice about this. They tell you what's wrong, and then you go back and you correct it. And then they send you out a letter, thank you for doing this, we're going to be back. So if you correct it, it's their way of telling you, here is something, it's an oversight, and you need to correct this. We corrected it. 2 years later, they came back, just like they said. And when they came back, they only found 1 observation. So I think we went way and beyond. And keep in mind, these observations, you have to go up to GMP. And the average pharmacy does not do this. We took it higher.
Do you agree that failing to conduct out-of-specification investigations, failing to monitor environmental conditions in aseptic processing areas, and the inadequate validation of the sterilization process can impact the quality of drugs?
If you're doing it according to USP, we did everything correctly. GMP is manufacturing. When you say GMP, this is on the level of Pfizer. And there's very few people that are going to do major drug, are going to be on a drug level. We are attempting to go there, but nobody does GMP, nobody at all.
So to repeat my question, do you agree that those activities can impact the quality of drugs?
Which activities again?
Out-of-specification investigations, failing to monitor environmental conditions in aseptic processing areas, and the inadequate validation of the sterilization process.
Yes, but the reality is it's not required by any pharmacy. This again is Pfizer level manufacturing.
So isn't it true that your statement in the petition that the quality of preparations compounded by UCP was never in question is false?
I guess it depends on how you look at it. If you're following USP and California, actually none of this was required incidentally by California law. I want to make that perfectly clear. This is GMP manufacturing. I thought our quality was excellent. We have our stability test. We have all the testing. Everything was tested out perfectly, and there was no problems. Again, keep in mind, manufacturers are at a much, much higher level than the typical hospital pharmacy or retail pharmacy. Typical hospital will not be able to keep up with it, and neither will retail with GMP.
Do you agree that Business and Professions Code Section 4127.7 required sterile injectable drugs from non-sterile components to be compounded in ISO 5 class clean room?
What was that? Say it again.
Do you agree that Business and Professions Code Section 4127.7 required sterile injectable drugs from non-sterile components to be compounded in an ISO 5 class clean room?
Yes, that is the problem. See, what it says, 4127.7, and for people who do not know this, all your compounding, everything, must be done in an ISO 7 room and an ISO 5 hood. Now, if you understand compounding, you should have 2 rooms. What she's saying is only 1 room. So what you're really doing by following 4127.7 is you are not making a quality product. You should only do pre-sterilization inside the ante-room or ISO 8 room, and the only thing you do in an ISO 7 room and ISO 5 is sterilize the product. What she wants me to do is to do the pre-sterilization all in 1 room. And as you know, we brought this to the attention. In fact, this case brought this to the attention, and that is why 4127.7 has been repealed. That was a very dangerous law.
Okay, I'll repeat my question again. Do you agree that Business and Professions Code Section 4127.7 required sterile injectable drugs from non-sterile components to be compounded in an ISO 5 clean room. Is a yes or no?
ISO 5 clean room, no.
No, okay. And isn't it true that
It's,
USP...
just so correct you, it was the ISO 7 with ISO 5 hood, just so you're aware.
Okay.
And again, that would be a major problem with the FDA if you did that.
Okay, so section 4127.7 of the code states, a pharmacy shall compound sterile injectable products from one or more non-sterile ingredients in one of the following environments. A, an ISO 5 laminar airflow hood within an ISO class 7 clean room. The clean room must have a positive air pressure differential relative to adjacent areas. B, an ISO class 5 clean room. C, a barrier isolator that provides an ISO class 5 environment for compounding. Do you contest that that is what the code section says?
It says that, but we all know it's wrong. And that is why this Board of Pharmacy repealed that law. Let's just listen for a couple of seconds what she said there. She actually wants us to compound a hazardous drug in positive pressure. It's negative pressure, the complete opposite. And the ISO 5 is the only place where you sterilize. You should never do pre-sterilization. That, again, is why this Board of Pharmacy and why this case repealed that law.
And isn't it true that USP 797 allows sterile injectable drug products from non-sterile components to be compounded in an ISO 5 environment, along with an ISO 8 environment?
It is the only thing you do in the ISO 5 is sterilize. In the ISO 8, which California has not had a room like that all the way to January of 2017, you only do pre-sterilization in the ISO 8. That was the major flaw. Yes, thanks for bringing that up.
And isn't it true that section 4127.7 was repealed because section 4127.7's requirement that there be positive airflow pressure for compounding hazardous drugs conflicted with the newly enacted California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1735.6 E1's requirement that there be negative pressure for compounding hazardous drugs?
Yes, it should be, actually, 1735 was corrected, and which was interesting because you had 4127, it was there, it's contradicted 1735. It was under, and in other words, under the new law, we would have followed this properly.
But the new law would have allowed you to do it in a greater, cleaner environment than an ISO 8.
No, it's perfectly fine to make it, to do your, remember, pre-sterilization. This is where everybody's getting confused. This is where you get everything ready. This is where you mix. This is where you weigh. This is where you adjust pHs. This is where you gown. This is where you scrub. This is pre-sterilization. You never do that in the ISO 5 and ISO 7 environment. That is only for sterilization, and that is why the law was repealed.
But isn't it true that you can do those in an ISO 5?
Well, you know what's interesting? Because, in fact, you were there. Now I remember. Do you remember that when I was at the hearing, we brought up the evidence that the ISO 5, the judge, what?
I don't think there was a hearing, was there?
No, there's no
Okay,
hearing.
You settled the case,
No,
right?
okay.
Maybe have a sidebar with my client
You
for a
want
moment.
to talk to your client for
Yes,
a minute?
for a moment. Thank you.
Okay, just get the mic away from you, otherwise it's being recorded.
Okay. Well, anyways, this went to a administrative hearing, which was very interesting. It went 2 days. And we explained, I brought 4 or 5 pharmacists, explained about USP. It was extremely interesting, brought all of our information up. And just so you know, one thing you cannot do in the ISO 5 hood is weigh or mix, because that's called high particulate activity. That means if I were to take alcohol, pour it into the beaker, the powders are flying in the air. So that is why, and that creates what's called an insanitary condition. You cannot do that. So I explained this to the judge, and the judge says that, well, why don't you go back to the pharmacy, and at that point, prove this, and have an outside company measure the particles in the air, and it'll be invalidated. Says, whoa, what? I was amazed that a judge knew that. It was fantastic. We went back, and sure enough, we made the pellets in the ISO 5 environment, and the particles were flying in the air, and at the same time, the company that measures the particles in the air took pictures of it. We took a video. It did fail. That's why you cannot do high particulate activity in a ISO 5 room, and brought it back to the judge. And at that point, I don't know, to me it was clear as day. 1, 4127.7 was wrong. 2, you know you're not supposed to do it. You're breaking federal law. You got high particulate activities. You got live evidence there. And they didn't want to, she didn't want to accept that. But I will say that the judge did say, at that point, he did make a statement that it was not obvious. He says, this law has to be changed.
What hearing are you referring to?
The one was with you.
We never had a hearing in this matter.
Okay,
It's
was
not a
it-
hearing, it's administrative.
Okay, but if it's a settlement conference, then none of that is admissible, and we can't talk about what statements were made during a settlement conference.
And there's no way to, test the veracity of what the judge said.
I mean,
to
you
him
could
in
certainly
private.
tell us about some testing you tried, but I want to admonish everyone not to talk about what the parties said to each other during a confidential settlement conference, or what the judge said, because it's all a settlement conference and it's confidential. It's not admissible under, I think it's Evidence Code 1152, if I'm remembering my code sections properly. Go ahead, Ms. Kellogg.
Thank you. And isn't it true that the ISO 5 clean room that you were using in 2015 also used a germ-free model BBF for SSRX clean bench class 2 type A laminar flow biological safety manufactured by germ-free laboratories?
I couldn't recall, but it sounds correct. I wouldn't know.
And isn't it true that the manufacturer believed that it did not compromise the airborne particulate cleanliness?
Well, obviously it did, because I had proof that it did.
Your Honor, I must object. What's the purpose of this line of questioning? We're relitigating a violation that was admitted to 4 years ago.
I'll move on.
Oh, go ahead. Thanks,
Okay.
Ms. Kellogg.
And isn't it true that from at least 2012, UCP was compounding the pellets at issue in the case in an uncertified room?
Where's it?
From at least April 2012, UCP was compounding the pellets at issue in an uncertified room.
It was an ISO 8 room, I know that.
Was it uncertified?
Well, it may have been, but I think I did have that certified immediately. Actually, that was an interesting thing, too. We had 2 ISO 8 rooms with a doorway in between. The other one was certified, and I don't think, because we thought it was one room, we thought one certification would have done it.
But isn't it true that you were compounding the pellets at issue in an uncertified room?
Yes, but I had it immediately tested out because it was an ISO 8 room. I assumed that the certification for the other room, for both of those rooms, because there's an open area in between, that one certification did both.
But it's true that you were certifying them, that you were compounding them in an uncertified room.
Well, there was an opening between, it's not like it was doors closed off, so I don't know. To me, it doesn't sound like it.
Were you ever, did the Board of Pharmacy, did you ever switch to compounding the pellets in an ISO 8 room? Weighing and mixing them?
It was an ISO 8 room.
But it was,
It was an ISO 8.
but it was uncertified. When did you certify it?
Again, it was one large room with a door opening. All of it was an ISO 8. It was certified in that area. I assumed the whole thing was certified. And to prove it, I had it certified again and sent that into the Board of Pharmacy.
And isn't it true that USP 797 does not allow pre-sterilization processes to be done in an uncertified room?
In my opinion, it was certified.
Isn't it true that board inspectors notified you in 2012 that UCP was compounding drug preparations in an uncertified environment not allowed by Section 4127.7 or USP 797, but you continue to compound in that uncertified room?
Well, if you take a look at the law, it would say that you have to compound this in the ISO 5, ISO 7 room. And we made it really clear that it was not possible to do that room. So it was compounded in an ISO 8 room, which...
Isn't it true that board inspectors notified you in 2012 that UCP was compounding drug preparations in an uncertified environment?
That was in their opinion, yes.
And they told you that, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. What's the relevance of conduct that occurred 6 years ago to the petition that is supposed to be focused on rehabilitation efforts since the beginning of the probation?
Okay, hold on. Ms. Kellogg.
Yes, this is relevant. It goes to his taking personal responsibility for the actions at issue, and that's part of the rehabilitation process.
Okay, overruled.
What's your question?
Okay, so my question is, isn't it true that the board inspectors notified you in 2012 that UCP was compounding drug preparations in an uncertified environment?
Yes, an ISO 8 room.
And isn't it true that you received a notice of violation of that fact?
Yes.
And isn't it true that you continued to compound the drug preparations in that uncertified environment?
No, we had made sure it was certified
And when did you certify it?
immediately. And this information was sent to the Board of Pharmacy immediately.
And how immediate was that?
You're talking 7, 8 years ago, I would think within 3-4 days. Well, actually, probably Monday or the next day that, because you just call them in and have it certified, and it was certified.
But then you continued to compound it in a ISO 8 environment, correct?
What do you
The
mean?
pellets. Isn't it
After
true?
it's certified, yes.
Yeah. Even though you had been notified by the inspectors that that you needed to comply with Section 4127.7?
Well, that it has to be certified or what? 4127.7 states that you have to do it in ISO 5 hood.
Right, and you were doing it in an uncertified room, and then you were compounding it, your testimony is today in an ISO 8 environment, and so...
And ISO 8 is acceptable under USP 797.
But it is not acceptable under Section 4127.7.
And that's why that law is repealed.
But you continue to compound in an ISO 8 environment for how many years? After being notified in April 2012 that you were violating that provision?
Well, believe it or not, all the way to January of 2017, just like every other pharmacy.
So is it true that you were compounding did you continue to compound pellets after April 1st, 2016?
No, I did not. The reason why is if you read 4127.7, it stated that you have to compound these pellets in a ISO 5 environment. And we proved the fact that it would be impossible to compound this in the ISO 5 environment. Therefore, I had to discontinue the pellets completely because I wanted to follow the law, and I knew there was no answer to this law until this 4127.7 was repealed, which it did get repealed.
And when-
So I did stop making it because it wasn't possible under the state of California laws.
And when did you stop, discontinue making or compounding the pellets?
Right when they wrote it up.
Was that after the filing of the accusation?
No. See, this is going back from 2000. What accusation in 16 after?
When did you stop, when did you discontinue compounding the pellets that are at issue in this matter?
I would say it had to have been in 15.
2015?
Wait, what is it? 16, 17. I just can't remember exactly.
Was it after the filing of the first amended accusation?
Filing after. Yes, I think so.
So isn't it true that your statement in your petition that you inadvertently violated section 4127.7 false?
I believe that I was in compliance. And incidentally, during that time period, the laws that were currently in place were in the process of being voted on and approved, which would allow me to make the pellets in the ISO 8 room.
So isn't it true that your statement in your petition that you inadvertently violated section 4127.7 false?
Well, it is not true.
So you believe that you inadvertently violated section 4127.7?
You know, I'm going to be honest with you, I had no idea, just like everybody else, that 4127.7 did not allow an ISO 8 room for pre-sterilization.
And isn't
That's shocking. And that's why that law was repealed. And that's why we changed the laws, and I helped change the laws for the latest one that came out in 17.
But isn't it true that you were notified in April 2012 by the board that you were compounding the pellets in an uncertified room that was not in, that was in violation of section 4127.7?
As I said, I was not aware that you could not use an ISO 8 room to do pre-sterilization. I didn't find that out until this hearing. I had no idea because the ISO 8 room is just common in every compounding pharmacy.
But isn't it true that you were told by Board of Pharmacy Inspectors in April 2012 that you were not, that you were violating section 4127.7?
I'm not sure if that was the number back then. It just says, I think, didn't you just say it was not in a authorized room? I don't remember.
I'd like to request that the inspection report dated 4/23/2012 be introduced and marked introduced into evidence and be marked as Exhibit 6.
Okay, bring it up and I'll mark it. Okay. All right, I'm marking as Exhibit 6. And this is all these pages all together, or no,
Yeah.
everyone gets a copy?
Everyone gets a copy.
Okay, yeah. Pass them. I think there's enough. So I've marked Exhibit 6. Any objection? Mr. Predzelka? To Exhibit 6, it's the inspection report from April 23 of 2012. And Ms. Kellogg, it does seem like you're trying to litigate the underlying facts.
Yeah, I must renew my objection to that because we're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
Just
it
one
seems like
quick-
we're spending a lot of time on this, and the board really wants to talk about rehabilitation and whether this particular petitioner should have his probation ended. And going back in time like this doesn't seem to be very helpful.
Only one or two questions on it.
Okay, 2 questions. Go ahead.
Is that your signature on page 3?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the inspector wrote that the pellets, the weighing and compressing of the pellet is done in an uncertified room and then taken to the clean room for autoclaving?
Could you point us to the direction where it is?
Page 2, the 4th paragraph down. And that they discussed the requirements of a non-sterile environment with you, and that there was an action plan for Business and Professions Code, Section 4127.7.
Was there action? I'm sure there was an action plan.
What was the request for?
Yeah. And we did make sure that room was certified.
And isn't it true that on October 6, 2012, that an inspector also informed you that the pellets that were compounded the pellets that you were compounding in an environment did not meet the requirements of Business and Professions Code, Section 4127.7?
In my interpretation, we believe the process that we were doing, because we were following USP, was correct, and that the inspectors was incorrect.
Senator Stone wrote you a letter of support indicating that he believed that the probation was only based on an alleged violation of Section 4127.7. Did you ever have Senator Stone read the first amended accusation?
No.
And isn't it true that you contributed to Senator Stone through CPHA's PAC?
Objection on relevance.
Overruled.
Through his PAC? I probably donated, yes. But I don't know if it was through CPHA. I don't know how the donations were.
And isn't it true that the other 2 pharmacists' references that are included in your package work for you as the director of compounding and the pharmacy director?
What other 2 pharmacists?
Are they 2 pharmacists that work for you?
I know one. I can't remember the other.
Could you be more specific which pharmacist you're referring to? There was about
Mr.
11 letters submitted.
Yes. So there were 2 letters from 2 pharmacists, Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Awad.
Oh, yes. George was a pharmacist that worked for me at
Okay,
for another company, yes.
Hold on a second. I kind of got a couple of questions from some board members. Now, Ms. Kellogg, you've moved on.
Yes, I
And you're
moved
now
on.
talking about the letters that the petitioner submitted in support of the petition?
Yes.
Okay, and before we move on to that, I just want to be clear, I didn't rule on Exhibit 6 being admitted. Were there any objections, Mr. Przalska?
No, Your Honor.
I didn't hear you, I was speaking.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so Exhibit 6 is received, and now we're talking about the
Character reference
character
letters.
reference letters. Okay, go ahead.
So Mr. Awad does work for one of your pharmacies.
He used to. He used to. No longer works for me.
And isn't it true that Virginia Partridge, who served as the consultant who performs monthly probation audits as required by your probation, wrote a letter of support for you in connection with this petition?
Yes, she's probably one of the best ones that wrote it because she had eyes on our pharmacy every month, constantly looking. It was a huge help to improve the quality of pharmacy.
And isn't it true that Ms. Partridge was also your expert in the underlying accusation matter?
Yes, because she was quite aware of USP 797.
And isn't it true that Ms. Partridge was prepared to testify that UCP did not violate Business and Professions Code Section 4127.7 in the underlying case?
Objection, Your Honor. No hearing ever occurred, so no testimonies.
I didn't even understand your objection.
Sorry. Relevance. There was no hearing on this matter, so Ms. Partridge did not testify to anything.
Okay, overruled.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
I don't.
Isn't it true that Ms. Partridge was prepared to testify that UCP did not violate Business and Professions Code Section 4127.7 in the accusation matter?
She was prepared to testify, but I don't exactly know what she would have been testifying at. But it's definitely because of the pellets, according to making it according to USP 797.
Did you read the reports, the expert reports that Ms. Partridge prepared in the underlying matter?
It never got to hearing, so no.
You never read the reports that she wrote.
Are you going to answer the question? She just asked if you never read the reports that Ms. Partridge wrote. It's counsel, I don't want you telling your client the answer to the question. That's what seems like is going on. Okay, let's have the witness answer the question, okay?
I cannot remember. It's been quite a while back. But as far as reading, I don't know if I read it or not. I don't know.
Mr. Petrelsky, if you want to talk to your client, I want you to wait until after he answers a question. I don't want you to be whispering in his ear after each question, and that's what I've noticed has started to happen, and that's not appropriate. I want the answer under oath from the witness without the lawyer telling him something before he answers. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Kellogg.
So it's your testimony that you can't recall if Ms. Partridge wrote that, quote, applying Section 4127.7 is inappropriate in these cases?
I can't recall.
And it's your testimony that you did not read the expert reports that were prepared by Ms. Partridge in the accusation matter?
Objection, Your Honor. Ms. Kellogg is referring to some documents that are not part of the package. Could we have the documents of that?
I don't think we need the documents for this hearing. I think the question is whether he read the reports that she wrote in the underlying matter.
If I can't see the report, I don't know how I could know the report.
Okay, so if you don't know, then that's what you tell us.
I don't know.
Tell the truth. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Kellogg.
So do you recall if you retained her as an expert in the underlying matter?
Yes.
And do you recall what she was going to testify about in the underlying matter?
Well, it would be about the pellets.
And do you recall if she was going to testify that applying Section 4127.7 was inappropriate in this case?
My guess would be yes, that would be correct.
I have nothing further
Okay.
at this time.
Okay, now it's time for board members to ask any questions they may have. Just so the record's really clear, what I like to do is just go and someone raise their hand and I'll go across. And if you just state your name before you start to ask your question so we have a clear record of who's speaking. So at my far left, do you have any questions, sir?
No, I have no question.
Okay, next person.
Hi, Deborah Veal, professional licensee member. I just have one or two questions. Your manager of quality that you recently
Yes.
created, was that someone you hired from within your group, or was that someone outside?
We hired within the group because this person had a tremendous amount of knowledge. I thought I'd give her the opportunity, and then what we did is took this person to go to extensive training. So yes, I try to hire within and promote my employees when I can.
And the Director of Compounding, is that a new position also?
Well, yes, that's what Rick does. Rick is the Director of Counting and Director of Compounding, and I am the pharmacist in charge.
Okay.
Yes,
And-
that it would be someone who's in charge of, yes, that would be kind of a new position as opposed to pharmacist in charge.
Were both of those positions created since your?
Well, no, actually, well, Rick's been the Director of Pharmacy for quite a few years, probably, quite a few years, I would think 5 or so. And the new one, the Quality Control Manager, that has actually been just placed in just when it said probably this year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, the next person. Do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you for asking, Your Honor.
Okay, next, sir.
Victor Law, licensee member. On the FDA inspection that you mentioned conducted in 2017, besides that one observations, did they give you a full report?
As of now, no.
Did they mention they might come back in another 2 years?
I think that's the new program now. They're going to be coming to pharmacies every 2 years.
Okay. And so you mentioned that the probation in other states affect your business. Could you tell the board how?
Well, because I lost prescription business, there's actually a lot of reasons. Once you're on probation, this automatically goes to insurance companies. Insurance companies drop you. If you had Medi-Cal, you would automatically be removed. If you were a lot of institutions, they just do not want to deal with you. And I can't blame them. If you're on probation, especially with sterile compounding, but I think they didn't completely understand the program. So that's where a lot of business was lost. And just in general, so we lost about 40% of our business.
Okay. And on the testosterone pellets that you compound before that were in question, you don't do that anymore?
No, because you couldn't legally do it. See, I inadvertently did not see 4127.7. I had no idea you could not use an ISO 8 room in the state of California, all the way to January of 17. I had no idea. So when it was brought to my attention, I understood it, and I says, well, I can't legally make that pellet in the ISO 5 environment without contaminating the room. So I just stopped. And that's when a lot of people lost their jobs. I could have kept going, but the thing is, I couldn't make it in that ISO 5 knowing that the high particulate activity, and you cannot even put a machine like that because it blocks the flow of the air. So I just did a good business move. I wanted to follow the law, and I did by stopping it.
But now that it's been repealed, wouldn't it be possible for you to pursue it again?
Nah, the damage has been, there's no way I will ever get my business back. I mean, it's gone. It's not possible once it's gone.
Okay. And on the false advertisement matter that they refer to, was it something that you hand out to the customers?
No, not at all. It was on the internet, and it basically told about andropause and what are the symptoms.
Is it still on the internet now?
No, I immediately took it down because I just felt that if it's not understandable, then I took it down. And I felt, according to all the literature, the medical literature, that was correct. But I guess took the high road and just said, oh, okay, I understand this, and I removed it immediately. There's no claim at all.
Okay. No further question, Your Honor.
Okay. Any for you, ma'am?
Yes. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Amy Gutierrez, professional member. When you talked about the repeal of the 4127.7, that was part of the board's work on modifying and updating sterile compounding regs, correct? Or was it something separate?
No, it was something separate. If you remember, it was kind of like it was we voted on this separately. Let me go back and explain again. At that point, when 4127.7, I knew it was wrong. See, you could not, that's why I had to stop the pellets. I couldn't go any further. I brought it to the attention, and this is interesting, I brought it to the attention of Christine. And Christine came in because she had to inspect in order for me to keep going. I said, Christine, this law's wrong. You can't have positive pressure with hazardous drugs. And you know that you can't do weighing and mixing and everything in the ISO 5 hood. And she goes, oh, you're right. And then I said, well, in that case, why don't we repeal the law? My guess is that she got back to the information to the Board of Pharmacy. My guess that's what happened. And then I waited and I waited, and that law wasn't repealed. So what I did is I contacted Senator Stone, and I said, I think that they need some help with repealing it because they need a senator to repeal that law. And then in December of, I think it was 16 or 17, whenever we did it, I was notified that was going to be up for vote in January, and it was voted on, and it was completely repealed. And it was a really, if you really understand compounding, that's a major breakthrough. Unfortunately, 4127.7, I'm just guessing, could have been on the books since the 80s. And I'm thinking, because I used to make IVs in the 70s, and we only had one room and one hood. We didn't call it clean room, we called it the IV room. And I think 4127.7 was placed back in the 90s or 80s, and that's the way it was. And it probably was USP at the time. And then when 2004 came out, that's when actually I had an ISO 8 room back in 1998. But then now everybody who was following USP 797 put in the ISO 8 room. Because if you don't, it's creating insanitary conditions. So I did that. And,
So as part of the board's overall rehaul of the sterile compounding regulations.
But you know what? This is the funny part. This is where I'm disappointed in myself, because I know these laws. Why didn't we catch that all these years? I mean, why didn't we catch that in 2004? Why didn't we catch this in 2008? Why didn't we catch it in 2010? We just didn't catch it. And then in 2012, that's where, as you know, I wrote in, we need to have an ISO 8 room. But as funny as that is, in 2012, 13, 14, 15, we still didn't realize 4127.7 said you should only do everything in that room. Now, this direct conflict with the laws that we passed. It's direct conflict. It's a direct conflict with the FDA, GMP. Everything's wrong there. But nobody caught it. I didn't catch it. And I feel I should have, because this is all I do is pharmacy law. And you know why that no one caught it? It was a statute. It was placed over here. And all the compounding laws were over here. So when you went down it, you would have caught it right away, wouldn't you? I mean, everybody would have caught it who really knows this. And the reality is, everybody all these years have an ISO 8 room, and all of them inadvertently didn't know they are breaking 4127.7. Isn't that amazing? All 700 licenses.
So you made a comment earlier about expiration date. So
Yeah.
tell us, and you made a comment and I just want to make sure I understood it correctly, that if something's labeled for 365 days, the fact that the patient's going to use it in the next few months, it's okay for that labeling to be that way, because the patient will have used it up by the time the expiration date comes up.
Well, see, none of this was really required. And as you know, which is not a great idea, we put everything at 6 months. So I went way out of my way to do the stability study with stearic acid. And the reality is, it didn't matter what my study said, because of the fact that this is how pellets are used. You get a prescription goes to the doctor, and then they inject the pellets. So I make it this month, then I got to sterilize it, then I got to test it, and then the next month it goes out. And by the end of that month, and I give another couple more weeks, It's all gone. So, granted, there was a hyper-technicality there, but the reality is my professional knowledge told me that pellet, if I use cholesterol, 4 milligrams on a 200 milligram, or 4 milligrams on a stearic acid, it's not going to affect that drug. It's basically a dry powder, and it'll probably come as close as the expiration date of the API.
Okay, great. And the FDA oversight, I mean, that's unusual for a 503A. And you've had 2 inspections?
2 inspections. It's not unusual. They're going to hit all 2,000 pharmacies. They are already making the rounds. They usually go at the larger pharmacies, which is large. And I'm telling you, it's great that they do this. They are doing a great job. And I'll tell you, I'm impressed with the quality of work of our people. Now, mind you, these are 503A people. And to get 1, it's unheard of. It's unheard of. You go take a look at any 503B, you will see 483s left and right.
Thanks.
Okay, next person.
Okay, Greg Lippy, public member. I don't have questions, I just have a statement. I'd like to congratulate you for all the rehabilitative and corrective measures that you've taken.
Thank you.
All right, next person.
Lavanza Butler, and I want to chime in with what Greg just said.
Thank you.
All right, next person.
No questions.
Next person. Oh, we can't hear you. It's not on.
No, okay, good. Okay. I'd like to congratulate you too, but that will just kind of swell your ego, so I'm not going to do it here.
Could you state your name so we're clear?
Alan Shad, professional member. Okay, I have just some nosy questions here. What's the size of the pellets?
They were 200 milligrams.
No, I am physical size.
Oh, like a small tablet. It's more oblong, not more than a quarter of inch.
Okay, and these are inserted.
These are sterile. It's like a tablet, but it's a sterilized tablet, and it's inserted under the skin, and it's slowly released over time. And usually you get about 90 days worth of release of medication.
Okay, and then in this inspection report here, it says that in each batch of 750 pellets, you'd send out about 38 pellets which is what, about 5% here?
No, we send out 10%.
10%?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what's required by USP.
No, for sterility, endotoxin, and fungal testing?
Yes, you have to do that, yes.
And so where would you send those?
Well, ARL labs probably. What are the laboratories that we send all of our testing?
And then during the conversation, Jungle Jim's Pharmacy in Ohio came up. What's the relevance of that, do you know?
Jungle Jim?
Yeah, Jungle Jim.
Today?
No, it was in this report. I was just curious.
I saw that.
Jungle Jim's. Jungle Jim's makes pellets.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know why that came up. But
Okay. And then you said that you paid out $750,000 to have your, let's see.
Stability?
The stability studies. Tell me just a little more about
that. We go way out of our way. I'm sure I was the first person that did stability tests.
No, just tell me about it. Don't.
What do you mean?
Don't talk about you. Come
Okay.
on.
Well, we did the stability test on everything that we moved that we wanted to use more than 30 days.
What drugs or what?
Okay, it was all these. Well, let me tell you, the sterile drugs was all the injectable medications, and then all the fast-moving non-sterile. Just so you know, the price of an injectable drug is no less than $30,000. We make a heparin drug for interstitial cystitis. That was, I think, close to $70,000. It's very, very expensive. So every single drug, every entity, you have to get it tested. Now let's go to the non-sterile. So the non-sterile, you have to test. Not only the drug, the 3 drugs, but you have to test the stock solutions that it comes from, like testosterone separately, estrogen separately, progesterone separately, And then the mixtures, and when they're mixed together, they have to be tested. And then all the different variations, as long as they're staying within that level, as far as not necessarily the strength, but the components, that had to be tested. Those are $8,000 each. That cost me $500,000. And the sad part is, we could put an emergency legislation in to repeal it after I spent all that money, which is kind of, but I don't, you know what? I'm not sore about that because that stability testing really gives you a better look at the quality of medications you made. But so that was part of it. And there was also over $300,000 invested into building out, the hazardous room. Like I said, I had the hazardous room before anybody. I had it actually done by, we were working Christmas week because it had to be done by January 1. And we had it all done. And, the problems we had to keep putting, it wasn't corrected till, now we're waiting till 2019. And so anyways, I had all this done, but it spent a lot of money. And the training, I'm going to tell you, there was at least another $70,000 in inspections, gap inspections, and my training, easy $50,000, $60,000 in training courses.
Through Critical Point?
Yeah, all through Critical Point, and Critical Point is run by Eric Costango, and as you know, he is your consultant. I have to tell you this. I actually have proof and brought proof, and we contact, I'm not going to make pellets just for off the wind. You got to have studies. There's a lot of research before you go into, and I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. And Eric Costango is a very good person. You call him up, he'll tell you the answers. He said that it can be done in an isolate room. And that, to me, was enough, not to mention we know 4127.7 is wrong. So I actually got a written email from him stating this. So I'm not shooting from the hip here. I'm going with the consultants. I'm going with the best. And I really think he's probably one of the sharpest people I met. And if he said it's okay, and we all know 4127.7 was wrong, I inadvertently, did break the law, but I didn't find that all out till way back later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next person. And please remember to say your name.
Albert Wong, professional member. Why inspector give you instruction not to use the room, must use certified room for compounding, and you did not follow the direction or instruction? Or at least you get clarification or get permission from them to do any other way?
No, again, I want to make it clear. I had 2 rooms. Okay, there's 2, like a square room.
Yeah, with the opening.
Right, and there's an opening. So I thought that one covered both because I have all the circulation going through it. And that's what I missed on. But immediately, I got it tested, and I sent it in to Bob Radcliffe.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, next person. There's no one there? Okay, you're at the end. I can't see. Does anyone else on the board have a question? Just raise your hand. I'm not seeing any. All right. So, Mr. Zelka, did you have any follow-up questions you wanted to ask your client?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gracella, when you wrote in your petition that the quality of your products was never in question, was that related to the absence of any complaints about quality or absence of any issues with quality of your products? Or was it a statement that you never violated any laws?
Well, when they came in and they wrote it up, if there was a problem with the quality, they would have wrote it down. So there was none, and there was no problems with the sterility, no problems with pyrogen testing. So, and to me, they did not write up any quality problems.
Well, let me perhaps clarify the question. Have you ever had any instance where you would receive test results that would indicate either non-sterile product or product that would be out of specifications that would not be usable for your patient?
We test, you wouldn't believe how much testing. I mean, thousands and thousands of tests. And every once in a while, not often, maybe 0.25%, you will see come back that may have a problem. And at that problem, you're not sure, was it made improperly at the pharmacy or was it done at the lab? So what we did is a quality control establishment where you do a root cause analysis to go look for it. But I think in the 20 years that I've been, I think I've seen three or four, and it's going to happen. And anybody who says that they don't have any problems at all, and there's no bacteria growing in ever, and everything's okie doke, they're not hunting for this stuff, and I am.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Kellogg, did you have any follow-up questions?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Anyone at the board have any more questions? I don't see any hands. Okay. All right, now I'm going to let the parties make any closing remarks they'd like to make. Ms. Kellogg?
Thank you. It appears as though petitioners do not acknowledge that they adequately acknowledge that they failed to follow the compounding law in effect at the
Your Honor,
time.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes?
I have two additional witnesses that I would like to present.
Oh, you have additional witnesses?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but before Ms. Kellogg
Okay.
would go into closing
Okay.
remarks.
How many, are they character witnesses? Is that what they are?
Character and to the actual facts of the rehabilitation efforts.
Rehabilitation
Yes.
efforts?
Yes.
Okay, does we need a break? Okay, do you want to take a break?
It
Okay,
will be very brief then
yeah,
after that.
we're gonna take a break, and so let's go off the record now.